All right, cool. Let me expand this here. All right. So today we want to talk about, and I think we've seen a few videos in this from other people, um, and talk about, get the echo again, but not just recruiting, but specifically where you are and the effect that that has on your recruiting. And I think that's a big deal, a bigger deal than most people imagine. And we saw a video on it. Maybe I could try and pull it up in a second. I can't remember it. You know the guy, um, but where you're from? We had a big debate about it, and we decided to bring this on here. The state that you're from. We're talking football here, but probably every sport in some capacity, depending on where you are. I'm sure if you're a hockey player, being in the Northeast or the mid North, like I guess Michigan and is an advantage. But for football specifically, we saw a video where a guy talks about that being from certain states, if you're not from those states, your recruiting is a major uphill climb. But he said a lot more bluntly than that. He basically said, "You're not getting recruited Division One, meaning, and not. I'm not talking about Group of Five. I'm talking Power Five conference. It's going to be very difficult to get recruited if you are not in certain states. So let's first talk about the states. They're obvious: California, Florida,
California. Yep. You got
Florida.
California, right? You got California. And look, he's talking about, just so we're clear, right? We're not talking just Power Five, right? We're not talking just Division One. We're talking like, and the way he referenced this was like the ones you see on TV, the
Right.
ones that are playing for national championships, the ones everybody really like. That's the school. That's what we're talking about. And he referenced like four main states, right? We're
Yeah.
talking four, right? Yeah. So we're talking and this is in no particular order. You're talking California, right? California, Texas, Florida, Georgia,
Correct.
right? Those four.
And most of the recruiting, just because of what everything's is gone, is really based in the Southeast, Texas, California,
Right.
right? And then I guess like a fifth is probably, I mean, I'm sure it's a distant fifth, is probably Ohio.
That's
Is
what
my
I would say that Midwest, and not even so much like I mean, I guess you would consider that the Midwest, the start of the Midwest, right? But like it's only really Ohio is what you're talking about. And you're talking about those 4 or 5 areas being the hotbed of if you're looking for that Georgia, the Alabama, right? USC, Texas, if you're looking for those offers, you need to be in those states.
Yeah, and that's a big deal. And with respect to recruiting now, so then the question is, why is that, right? So let's. I think you are getting an echo, so I guess you might have to
All right,
do.
go ahead. So I'll go from
Yeah. So why is it those states? Well, first off, obviously the size of those states, they are the biggest states other than Georgia. Those are the three biggest states in the United States. I'm sure New York is the other one, but New York is basically New York City, and then it's very rural population wise for the most part outside of the city, which people don't realize. But um, but the states that those four states are the largest states, and the second thing that precipitates it being a huge advantage, which many years ago that wasn't the case. But I think there's two things. Number one, the weather. So where football used to be a fall only sport, right, and maybe a couple weeks of spring football, it is now can possibly be a year round thing with 7-on-7, with training, with development, right? So the ability to go outdoors and not have to pay literally, we talk about this all the time, any money to go and train or develop or even practice. Like there's so many parks you can go to in those states. gives you the ability to really develop yourself year round within that sport, which was not a huge thing 30 years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago. Um, and then the second thing, with respect to those states that make, besides the weather, that have a huge impact, is the tradition of football in those states and the migration of people from around the country, specifically the north, that are people are moving to those states to get that kind of competition, right? So you get people that are migrating, either they want better life, quote unquote, for their family, like warmer weather, or they've decided that, from an athletic standpoint, or that they're going to go down there because there's more programs as a whole. Even though there's a lot of programs now everywhere, there's still probably anytime you want, any program you want, is in particularly in those states. And then obviously throughout, the southeast disproportionately, and I'm looking to pull up the numbers here, but disproportionately, even in the smaller states, have a higher amount of scholarships. So those are two main factors. The third factor, and I don't know if this is a factor or not, as far as is there some scientific part to it, where the others definitely have that. The third part is the tradition of Division I programs littered throughout that southeast Sunbelt part of the country that have big time programs and huge fan bases, and with the era of social media, the ability to promote all of that all the time. Because of that, to get more people that want to be a part of those programs, and therefore are training to be a part of that as well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like you said, you're talking. I mean, look, we talked about you talked about three factors, right? Size, obviously, yes. California's a big state, Texas is a big state, Florida's a big state, right? But you're also talking about, like, you're talking size-wise population, right? Like, so there's, like you said, there's a lot of people that are there, not just space itself. There's a lot of people that are there. Weather, I think, is probably, I think it deals with a lot in terms of, like you said, now warm weather, right? I can go year round. I'm not worried about having to pay to go inside. Where am I really going to get the same work that I'm going to get outside, inside? I don't think so, right? So now you can kind of, I mean, look, there's a reason that, these states have spring football where we don't up here in the Northeast, so I just think the evolution of it, right, has become, it's a combination of people wanting to, they're seeing where certain players are coming from. I think I don't think it's a very hard argument to say that the SEC is the best football conference in the country. So now we're talking, that's where guys want to go. That's where people want to be. Cost of living in general, right? So maybe if they're trying to get out of the Northeast, right? Just because, maybe it's, hey, we can go down here and I can do this and live this certain way. And if it doesn't work out, it's only for 4 years while my son is getting, son or daughter is getting that education to go to that, go to that next level, or getting those looks from those places. And then I think like you said, the culture itself, where those people down there live and breathe football. That's what it is, right? Like, that's all that matters, is that football program or that youth program that now, hey, he's in this program to go to this high school so that he can get a scholarship to this place. I think it's more focused on that aspect, where in different areas, you don't have that so much. Or now that it's kind of been set in stone that this is like, hey, these are the three places you go to. Now it's just like, it just continues, right? So it would be very difficult for another place to kind of come out of nowhere and say, hey, move to this place because now we're producing, or now we're putting guys to that next level. I think the South is really, those states, California, Texas, Florida, Georgia, and then a little bit of Ohio. I think those are the top five that continuously produce. And if that's where you want, if you're looking for that Division I big time scholarship, I think you need to look at those places because that's just where everything is. Right now, that's not to say that is there an outlier somewhere else? I'm sure there is, but I guarantee you, and we talked about it like, the other day, if you ran the numbers, I guarantee you, if you want to look at, where the top recruits are coming from, I guarantee you that majority of those guys are coming from one of those 4 states.
So we'll pull it up right now. This is really interesting. So this is a little heat map, okay? Shows where the geographical origins of every Division One player. Okay, so I mean,
I mean, look, it
the Southeast
takes anything special to be able to look at this map and see where you're looking for,
right,
the hot.
This is probably up north, New Jersey.
That probably right there goes all the way from Massachusetts to Delaware, Virginia.
Well, this is Massachusetts, right? And this is down to Washington, D.C. Okay, so this is primarily from Philly to Washington, D.C. area, obviously the South.
And I think if you had to throw a 6th or a 7th area in there, you're talking about the D.C., Maryland area, right? Like that area itself produces a lot of big-time players, good-time guys, right? So I think they're like the next after those initial 5.
Right, and I wish I could draw on this because you can't see my cursor, but the big blot right here down in the Southeast, that's the Atlanta area, Gwinnett County, Cobb County. Down, obviously, Florida is easy to see. The Texas, the 2 big areas that you see are Dallas, Fort Worth, and Houston, right? Those are the 2 areas. If you look at California, you see, obviously, Los Angeles, all the way down to San Diego, and then up north towards that Oakland, San Fran area, right? Over in the Northeast, Washington, D.C. area, South Jersey / Philly, meaning South Jersey, like really towards Philly. Obviously, the north, the other dot is the North Jersey, right? So it's North Jersey, South, meaning Philly towards Atlantic City, not where we are as much, but like South towards Philly, like, and then obviously you have the Washington D.C. is the third, that Washington D.C. Beltway area, and then obviously in the middle you got like the Ohio region. Okay, so you have all this Ohio region, maybe like, Akron all the way down throughout. There's different spots within Ohio, right? Cincinnati's probably the lower one. The middle one's probably, Cleveland, Columbus, and then up towards north towards maybe like Akron type deal. So that's really interesting. I think, and then honestly, the rest of the area, I'm guessing this must be Utah, Colorado or something, or Utah. Maybe it's Utah. I don't know. But it is very sparse outside of those areas.
Right.
I mean, so, and then this is the next thing that's pretty interesting. This was, I guess, they did I don't know what Banner Society is, but they pulled it from the NCAA. Okay, blue chip recruits. This is not all the scholarship guys, because I know Texas has like 400 or something. This is the blue chippers, the top guys, okay, by state. Which, can you see? Yeah, you can see it, right? So you got California, Texas, Florida, Georgia, all with 40 plus. They represent 96, 141, 180, 181 of the blue chip prospects. And this really kind of goes to what this guy was saying. The rest of them, I don't even have to look to know that the rest of them combined probably don't even match. They probably don't even get up to 100, maybe a little bit over 100. So let's see, 181 for the top 4. And then the rest of these, by the way, if you look, this is the Southeast, right? So 31, 46, 60, 73, 85, 96, 105, 113, 121, 129.
It's not even close. You're talking the next, almost 10 states that don't even link up to those top ones.
Well, this is what it is. It's 4 states that represent 50% of all blue chip recruits. 4 states. And then if you were to add in the South, just adding the South, okay, take Ohio out, you're talking 80% of the scholarships from the South, California, Texas. That's crazy, right?
So no, the proof is in the numbers itself, right? So like if you think you're a blue chipper, right, then you think this is where I need to go, right?
Ohio's the one outlier. Slightly.
If you're one of these, hey, and look, obviously, like in the world of today, where social media and marketing and NIL and all this stuff, where if you're trying to give your son or daughter the best opportunity to play college football, right, then you need to, or play a high level. Now, look, this might not be the same for other sports, right? We're talking specific football, right?
So, yeah.
So if you want to play sport and you want to put your son in the best position to get that scholarship, these states are where the most good people are coming from. So you tell me.
Well, and then let's do it by population, right? So understand by population. So Georgia's population is 10.8 million. That is a tiny. New Jersey might be 10 million.
Listen, New Jersey is the most densely populated state in the entire country. We have people living on top of people here. You know what I mean?
So 9.26 million is New Jersey. I just looked it up. So 10 million. So Georgia, which is just mute yourself a little bit because it's echoing. Georgia, which is around the same, 1 million more than New Jersey, but let's just say around the same. They have, oh my goodness. So they have 5 times the number of blue chip recruits. So if you're in Georgia as a football player, that means that if you're a top football player, it's one of two things. Either they have 500% more better football players, or you have a 500% better chance of being a Division I football player. But either way, it's pretty wild, right? So then let's look at like Louisiana, which is at 15, right? It's only 7 more than New Jersey.
Well, listen, how about that? Like we have a firsthand experience with this entire situation, right? And we're talking about a guy who is a well-renowned head coach in New Jersey, right? State title winner as a head coach, right? Who literally did this, right? Took his son, moved down to Georgia,
yep.
Right? And now, I mean, my man is a top recruit for his class, and we're talking legit, right? And this was the move that he made firsthand, right? He packed up, he left New Jersey, he went down south, and now his son's playing at one of the most prominent programs in Georgia high school football, and he's got rides, he's got offers and scholarships and all this stuff, and he's this stars and he's all that. I mean, so he literally took this model and ran with it, and it's worked out for him.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And then you see like Louisiana, which is, I call it Little Texas, right? 4 million people. New Jersey has 9, so let's say New Jersey's twice as big. But in top recruits, Louisiana has double the number of recruits, which means that you're 4 times more likely to be able to go Division I from Louisiana, which I've been there, like outside of New Orleans and outside New Orleans, it's you got to drive a long way.
Swamp country, brother. Like it ain't like, listen,
you got to drive. You're fine. So that means guys are willing to drive all over the state. You know what I'm saying?
This is something that I've always said, right? Like, it's really hard for us here in the Northeast to kind of understand this, right? Because this is where we've grown up in the Northeast, right? Where you can drive an hour and you can go to a bunch of different places, right? The rest of the country, you drive an hour, you might not be in the next, you know what I'm saying? Like you could still be in the same county. You know, it's different here where I think things are more spaced out at these places, these other places. And being from the Northeast, it's really hard for us to understand, like, oh, yeah, because we drive an hour, we're almost through our entire state. You know, these other places, people are willing to see that, go to different schools, different states, and see where it is. And now, ultimately, you're talking less numbers. It's more quality over quantity, right? Because now for every this many prospects, 4 of them or however many are going Division I. This is what you're looking for. So why wouldn't you? And I get it if you can. And you know how many times we hear, "I'll do anything for my kid. I'll do anything for that." All right. Well, are you really willing to do anything and get up and go and put yourself in a position where now you're in one of these fire states that you can get a better look?
Well, here's an even crazier stat I just found. So 5-star, okay, 5-star prospects. All right, 5-star prospects. Florida was this was obviously it changes slightly from year to year, but 2021, Florida had 59. This was 2021 class because they don't always. I mean, I'd have to dig to find 20, but it's going to be somewhat new. Florida 59, Texas 45, Georgia 39, and California 37. 170 of the 331, and it's just what we said. 5-star designations over the last 10 years. So this is from 2011 to 2021. 51% were produced from those 4 states. From there, only other states in double figures were Alabama, as you would expect, Virginia, and Louisiana, all southern states, with 14 each. So that means that and here's a little. This is a great map. Now I gotta say this: Jersey doesn't produce a ton of Division I players, but they do have a lot of high end for, and maybe it's because of the parochial powers.
Right.
Actually, that is the reason why.
Listen, let's call it out. Because we can have this conversation too, because you can take it and break it down into Jersey. And if we have, if there's 50 prospects, right? Like we were talking about, if there's 50 prospects that are going Division I college football coming out of New Jersey, 30 of them come from one of those powerhouse parochials. Okay. With the rest of them kind of scattered in and probably could be at one of those, right? If they wanted to. So the disparity of where those guys are coming from is one thing, right? But yeah, New Jersey does produce those guys, but it's also where are those guys going, right? Because look, you look at states like Florida, right? That have 5 Division I programs in the state itself. California, how many Division I programs are there, right? Texas, how many Division I programs are there? Now, Georgia's the only outlier in those top 4 that we talked about that has the number 1 school in the country, right? That doesn't have those other, Division I programs within its state borders. Now, that being said, Georgia's the number 1 team in the country. New Jersey, Rutgers, sure as hell isn't the number 1 team in the country, right? So if we're talking Division I schools within those states itself, that's the other part. You also now have the option to go to a Division I powerhouse program that's in your state rather than New Jersey, where you have one option to go Division I in this state. And no offense, I don't know if it's an option that a lot of these guys really want to entertain.
Yeah. Well, and we'd have to do a history study to be able to understand that, because it just really has to do with the history of Rutgers itself, not necessarily a coaching staff or anything, because obviously everything Schiano's always done is tried to bring it in higher level.
So but that's where I think you can start to get into too, right? And we talked about this too. What does your state allow its high school football players to do outside the season that can help them get a scholarship.
Right. So let's and I want to talk about that because but I thought this was, so this is 5-star recruits. Okay. Can you see it? I don't know if you can. Yeah, you can see it, right?
Yeah, you can see it.
I don't know. I wish it was bigger for some reason, but it's not. So it is what it is. But let me see. How can I get this bigger? Just trying to get bigger because it's just all right.
So that gives you the 5. So that's numbering each state with how many 5-star recruits have come from each state.
Yes, that's correct. So I'll read it to you just because it's going to be hard for you to see on there. But so you see the numbers. I'll give you. So Florida, like I said, 50 was 50. This is from 2011 to 2021. Florida, Texas, obviously California, Georgia, right? Alabama, which is next to Georgia. Louisiana, which is next to Texas, right? Makes sense. Virginia is in like that, well, like we say, that pocket, right? Because of the DC area. Because
now, and you're going, hang on. So California has what, 37?
37.
What, and then the next one, so number 5 is Bama, you said?
5 is Bama.
What's that number at?
17.
So look at, that's a 20-player drop just from the 4th to 5th. Right? Like,
Alabama's, well, what's interesting also is Alabama has to be a small state. I mean, I don't know. What's the population of Alabama? 5 million. Okay, so it's half the size of Georgia. So it produces close to the same level of talent per capita. Because I like to look at it per capita, you know what I mean? Because that tells you a lot of how then Louisiana obviously is great per capita, 14 for only 4 million. It's very similar to Alabama. I mean, Mississippi has 9, right? But what's Mississippi has not a great educational system, which makes it harder for.
Now, I think that's where, now this is something, right? Now, this is a conversation of different cultures, different outlooks, different focuses on life, right? So the argument, I guess, right? Like if I'm putting myself in someone that would argue as to, well, I don't need to go to one of those states. Okay, well, look, here's the deal, right? The argument's going to be, well, the education systems aren't the same in the Northeast or in, in those states as it is here in the Northeast. Okay, but we are talking specific scholarship for football players, right? I'm not talking about education. I'm not talking about a job after the fact. I'm not talking about a person who wants a Division I scholarship ultimately to play college football at the highest of the high levels. This is where you're going. Okay. I don't care about, education, per se. I don't care about any of that other stuff other than the fact that I am going to put myself in the best spot with the best opportunity to play college football at a true Division I program.
Yeah, I think it's really it. And what's interesting, like Mississippi's only population only 2.9 million, right? So they're pretty much the same as Louisiana and Alabama for per capita, right? But then after that, you get the other one that's decent per capita is I'll call it the Beltway, Virginia, Maryland, DC, which even though they're separate states. You're talking 27 5-stars came from Maryland,
right?
DC.
Well, what do they call? What do they call the DMV? Right? Is it the DMV where it's Delaware, Maryland, Virginia?
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Well, I mean, but you got to think about some of those. There's some blue blood programs there, right? Like, I mean, we're talking Gilman School, we're talking Good Counsel, we're talking Gonzaga, we're talking, where was Poggi at? Like, I mean, like those guys, that area itself has, I mean, that's good football. That's quality football. A lot of people go there to recruit that area. It's all comparable to where it is. And that kind of stretches into your, now that's your Southern Ohio type area where those guys, you know what I mean? It's all of that. And then stretch into that Northeast corridor, right? That area itself produces a lot of, guys. And, like you said, when we're talking about and I think it would be great to even study the movement of the population itself within the country, right?
Yeah,
Because
sure.
you see like an onslaught of movement from people moving from the Northeast to Florida, or people, post COVID, people have like upped and gone and been to different areas and done whatever. I also think that there's the way, schools and that type of thing, now more and more people looking at, like an IMG model, or,
Mhm.
the reclassing stuff, like if each state, depending on what each state allows for, which is something that, we've talked about in terms of allowing high school football players to do things outside of what their team does or they do in the school itself, is also a factor in where should I raise my kid, right? Because we talk about all the time, New Jersey has very loose rules, I guess you want to say, in terms of guys that want to go do 7-on-7s, guys that want to do clubs,
Yep.
guys that want to do, go to showcases or combines or visits, or, it's pretty much like, hey, you go do what you do outside of the season. And then, with a couple stipulations here, firsthand experience from being in what you do for so long, that certain states aren't like that.
Yeah, and I wish I could get data, and I don't know where we could, but I'd love to know where in 1985, for example. Obviously, we know Texas, California, and Florida are still
Right.
probably
Like,
top
where
three.
did most of the, well, I would think, like,
I
I
think
would thought I
Ohio
would
was
think the
probably higher.
Midwest would have been big time powerful back then, right? You're talking about, like, what's that? Your Woody Hayes era, or like, like the Ohio States of the Midwest, your Nebraskas of the day, right? Like, I mean, just look back kind of traditionally into some of those your Oklahomas, right? Like, that were kind of those powerhouses back in those days. I wonder if that would have created to see a little bit more of, the dynamics or where things have changed. But I also think it would be excellent or really interesting to get kind of like, a sheet of, okay, Alabama, okay, you can do this, you can't do this as a high school player. All right, Pennsylvania, you can do this, you can't do this, right? Like, I also think that that's one of the sleeping things. Like, Pennsylvania, people talk about Pennsylvania football being Pennsylvania, like, okay, but where are they in this grand scheme of it, right? How many blue chippers?
Pennsylvania has 9.
Right. Middle of the road, right? But I mean, I think,
Ohio only had 8
and listen, and we deal with it all the time, right? Like, oh, Alabama, you can't play in any unsanctioned all-star games, or Pennsylvania, like whatever states
Well,
allow.
Pennsylvania and Ohio are very restrictive, okay? Ohio more restrictive than Pennsylvania. Ohio only had 8 5-stars. Okay, remember I told you the story about how they used to not even allow combines, right? And so
Right.
um that changed, but
Which is interesting because you're talking Ohio, a place with 5 Division I schools within its borders.
Right, which makes them have to recruit out of state instead of in state, which makes it harder to win champion. I'm not talking.
Which is why Ohio State
Ten,
is
to
so
win the Big
far
Ten.
above those other 4, right?
Yep. So, and Michigan,
we're talking the bottom of the MAC.
Yeah, it's surprising that so that limitation over the long haul has, in the era of social media marketing, seeing players, literally seeing them a little less, probably translated into less
year,
live.
right? Just a little bit. And like, even yesterday when we were referencing and talking about it, right? I said, look, like, understand something. If a state is now going to make it difficult for me to come in there or visually see these guys or do whatever, well, unless that guy is above and beyond all these others, and I know it's a home run, why am I going to waste my time? I'll just go to another state that makes it easier. I'll just go to Jersey. It allows it easier. I can go to this, I can go to one camp, right, that they're holding it with 650 kids, and I can go get, whatever I need to, rather than waste my time or spend my time trying to fight through and navigate paperwork and make sure everything's online, or make sure everything is, in line so that nobody gets in trouble or this or that. I'll just go to an easier state. I'm not going to waste my time doing that, which ultimately now hurts the kids in those states.
In the long run, it becomes a huge deal. And it over time, it becomes a really big deal. And until you loosen up some of those restrictions, and you let the parents decide if they want to do it or not, then you and all this stuff plays into it. Where can you build more training facilities cheaper? Can you build it in the Northeast? No. You could
You're
build
lucky
it in
to
the
even find
South.
space. You can't even listen. And this is the other. You referenced it earlier. You can go down to Florida, go to any public park, set up your hurdles, or grab a ball, start chucking it around, throwing it, and people will actually probably come and be like, "Yo, where's so and so from? Where's he going?" Right here in the Northeast, the first thing that happens is, "Hey, where's your permit? How much did you pay for this? Get off the field." Or you just can't even find field space because somebody else is using it.
Right.
Or it's snowing. Like, what are we?
And then you got to go indoors.
Now I got to go indoor, and I'm paying astronomical fees, right? I don't even have the right field space or what I need to do to now, or the right surface on the floor. So now I'm pushing something that maybe the safety isn't so much there, but I have to because I need to. Now you're just juggling a lot of things where now you're putting the athlete ultimately in a bad situation. You're putting yourself in a bad situation. It's just not smart. And ultimately that's why these guys don't work out, because in order to cover all of those costs and all of that stuff to help kids get better, I'm ultimately going minus just because I'm trying to put a kid in the right situation, right? So these places that are now, hey, I can go to any local park, and then, once some guys see me throwing, there's going to be 5 other kids that are going to wander over and say, let's start throwing, because that's the culture, right? They understand that, okay? Here, not so much. It's a business. It's about, hey, I got to do the right thing. I got to make sure that this is whatever. And then, it's what it is.
Well, the space is a huge deal. The space, and you're right. You go, you're cultured in the Northeast, and I'm sure the Midwest less, because it's not, there is more space, but there are dense cities there. So probably in the cities, it's probably a problem. Not in the rural areas, but in the city. You are cultured can I go on this field? Can I go work out on this field?
Am I supposed to?
You don't just go out there, right?
I don't know, right? Listen, I can even talk you can even talk look, I get it. Yeah, there's some parks that are better than others or whatever, but you go down to Florida and you're starting to run around on the grass down there. The grass is different than it is up here in the north. You know what I'm saying? Down there, you're running around on putting greens and stuff. Dude, this is real deal grass. Up here, I'm worried about watch out for that divot because I'll break my ankle over there. Or hey, we're running on rocks today. Or by game 3, it's this. Just in general, just the warm weather just creates a different biological type of freaking thing that the Northeast, it doesn't just correlate. Now,
you sold me. I'm moving.
No.
You sold me. I'm moving.
Listen, how many? And look, it's also another thing too. And look, you can say what you want, but look, we also know that how many times have we referenced what a high school coach makes in Texas? Right? They are coach only, making a lot more money than anybody for a stipend position here, right? You don't hear
coaches are coach. The bigger schools are coach only.
You also aren't dealing with the high school football coach here in Jersey, who's also coaches, girls basketball, and then has to go coach track in the spring because, that's what he needs to make just to support a family. Right down there, you go and you're your offensive coordinator for a Texas high school team, and you're bringing home whatever you need, and that's your only job, right? You don't even have to teach classes, right? It's a different culture, different focus, different mentality about it. Those guys are just viewed different.
No, well, they're respected differently, and that's why you see in the Northeast the parochial schools completely dominate because they're not under those same limitations. They can,
correct.
If the school wants to do more, they can. It's really so. It's so. So the question is, this is what I think you have to do, and I see some players start to do it. It's very expensive. Everything in the Northeast to do things are expensive. So now what you have to do if you're a Northeast player is you have to go to where the players are.
And we've seen firsthand reference, right? We've seen guys go from playing on a local 7-on-7 team to going to a 7-on-7, a bigger club out of, say, a Miami, Florida. And now he gets, and now look, we're talking a kid that was probably on his way anyway, right? But now because he's now traveling, going all over, right? Now he's getting that, ooh, he's playing against this guy. Or, oh, he looked good here.
True. Right. You're
and
right.
Now it's okay.
And I think the camps also, even like in the summer camp stuff, like, all right, I'm going to go to, even if it's a small, like, let's say you're going to go to a small, I'll go to an East Carolina camp, I'll go to,
because you're between those, right? Because people are going to come from here. People are going to come from here.
Yep. Go compete against.
I also think listen, and I think that's one of the other big things and the big issues with it is, look, if you want to be, and everybody is so quick to, oh, this guy deserves a scholarship. This guy deserves a scholarship. This guy. Okay, well, you're comparing that off what? Like you sit here in your little whatever bubble of New Jersey, right? Or whatever conference you're in, and you think, and this guy, look, he may be the best player, but now we're talking national, right? National, not just this little protective bubble, right? Go and see other players that are really that good. And now, are you willing to go compete? And if you do compete, and where do you stack up against that? That's where I think you got to go to the Floridas of the world, the Texases of the world, the Calis, right? Because now, just in general, we talk about, like, look, in New Jersey, the privates are so much far ahead. Okay, great. But if you took any public school from New Jersey and played against a public school from Florida, what are you going to get, right? That's where I think you can really judge the level of talent in itself, right?
The
average Joe team, right? The average Joe team in New Jersey, how do they stack up against an average Joe team from California, an average Joe team from Texas? I hate to say it, but those other states where this is the culture, this is the world, this is all they're concerned with year round, I think you're going to see the record lean in their favor.
And fortunately or unfortunately, that's why Jersey's going to have to allow, and they do a good job of letting them do like 7-on-7 or combines, but you're going to have to allow them the freedom to do whatever they want. Like, you can't keep restricting coaches.
No.
This is the 20. I'm going to show you the 2022 100-meter dash. Okay, and like in Texas, okay, their 100-meter dash. This is last year. The top times, and the one guy actually is a football player, I think, who had it. But I'll show you this, and then we'll compare it to. And then we'll wrap it up, but we'll compare it to New Jersey. See if I can get this here right here. There it is. Okay. I didn't want to do my mathematical formulas pull those up. Nobody wants to see that. Okay. So you can see this. By the way, you see the fastest time, Matthew Bowling, who we all know. But this is 2022. He ran 10.22. Was the champion. 9th place was 10.77. To get in the top 3, you had to run 10.53. This is just 6A. This is not everything combined. Okay, this is just 6A, because if I go to 5A, it'll be something similar, right? So this is not the meet of champions. This is the group championship, just the big schools. This is not the whole entire state combined, all right? So, but that's just the big school section. If you were to compare,
well, just take like these are like the biggest schools. So this is what you would reference. Like, this is the fastest time for the biggest public schools in the state in comparable. Good. Okay, good. That's what it is. And what the fastest time was? What 10.2?
10.22, and 10.77 was last, 9th. All right, New Jersey group, which New Jersey, by the way, is a very good track state. So, much better than most states, and I think it's probably the best Northeast track state.
Would it be now? What about countrywide? Would we be top 10, top 5?
We're probably.
Sammy's like a 9, an 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, somewhere around there.
We're probably top 10 at minimum, because football we're probably like top 15. and
Yeah.
track will
I
probably
wouldn't put them in top 10 though. Football.
Yeah, maybe top 10, right? It's just that the drop off after the top 5 is big.
God, that's the biggest thing in Jersey. Now, look, would I take any of those public guys or private guys at the top to play another school and dominate? Absolutely. But it's not about that, right? Because that's like they're their own separate type of entity in the fact that they play in their own league, they beat the hell out of each other all season, and then ultimately they just have to go, once they get to the playoffs, they got to beat each other again to get to the finals, right? So I'm talking about your average media, like kind of middle of the road team. How do they stack up with it? So now we're talking the biggest schools, 10-2-2, and then ninth place was a 10-7-7. So now we're looking at where? Texas?
So now I'm going to go pull up. That was Texas group. So I'm going to pull up Jersey group 4. Okay, I'm not going to pull up the whole meet of champs, which I think was yesterday. But I'll pull up group.
Yeah, they were yesterday. My girl took second in the 400 hurdles.
That's fantastic. Wow.
As a junior.
Which is fantastic. That's really good. All right, group 4.
At least the girls win at my school.
All right, here's the group 400 meters finals. Okay. Group 4.
So this is group 4.
This is not everybody combined. This is big school.
This is group 4, New Jersey.
Big school compared to big school Texas. Okay. This is not, I'm not talking about outliers.
No, this is group 4, New Jersey race.
Yes. 100 meters. So I'll share that. We'll see it real quick. And then you'll see. Let's just make sure.
And for those of you that are outside of Jersey, the way it works in Jersey, when we're talking about groups, the bigger the number behind the group, the larger the school. So group 1 is tiny. Group 2 is above from that. 3, 4. Football is the only one with 5 groups. Just so everybody knows.
So can you see the 100 meters here?
You can't really see the numbers.
Let me see if I can
zoom.
Blurry. A little blurry. Okay, let me zoom in here. Let me zoom. Can you see it better now?
A little bit, still blurry. Hi, what is that? 10? Is that
10-9-6? Okay,
so
last is 11-5.
10-9-6 won the group
4
100-meter dash championship. Group 4 100-meter dash championship.
Even though he did run 10-7-7 in the preliminary, but he ran 10-9-6 in the final. Same kid.
It wasn't weighted.
So could have been. So he wouldn't have. First of all, he wouldn't have made the finals in Texas in the big school. I'll mute you real quick, so I don't. Okay, yeah, he wouldn't have made the finals in Texas in their big school. Would not have made the finals. Okay, 10-7-7 we said was last. Okay, in Texas, so he wouldn't have made the finals. This is the fastest guy in group 4. Now there may be other guys in group, like we know Kinlaw had a kid that ran like 10-7 something, right, or 10-8. So there are guys in smaller, and same goes for Texas. There might be guys that ran faster 10-2 that are in the small. So I'm just comparing big school versus big school. It's mind blowing the difference. Now, obviously, these are all truths. It's warmer in Texas. They can train year round. It's the same thing for track as it is for football, right? Track guys, they're not coming outdoors till April. So how fast can they develop their speed, right? Even though they do indoor track, but it's still not the same as.
It's not the same.
So
now, also, you're also talking about
long-term development, and this is my biggest point.
Overall, they've been training to do this. Yeah, it's not just. This isn't just like a, hey, like these guys can't. Like their parents probably ran track in college or did something in college. This is the way they were brought up, and that's how it just continues, right? Which is why, you seeing it from this. And listen, talk about it too. Like a time that wins in Jersey in the 100-meter doesn't even come. Like, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't even get into the finals in Florida. Or any of that. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
way. Everybody knows Carl Lewis. Everybody knows Dennis Mitchell. Everybody knows. Now there's been out Jabril Peppers could have placed could have placed in
Right.
Florida.
Right. Now, also, I'm also a big pertainer to this. Like, if those guys from Jersey train and had the upbringing that these guys that are running, 10-2s, I'm sure they could be right there too. But that goes back to what we're talking about. Put your kid in the best spot to get where they want to be. It's got to be in one of these states because now they're surrounded by it, dude. Right? Like the neighbor next door walks out the door in a pair of Crocs and runs a 10-7.
Well, and this is the other thing. I think it's gotten worse over time. I posted something on my Facebook. I don't know if you saw it. That I still hold the Group D Bergen County.
Saw it. 1992.
It's 31 years. That's ridiculous.
1992.
That's ridiculous. And what does that mean? That means it's probably become harder to train because everybody thinks, oh, it's snow out. I got to go to indoor facility. Like, I'm not gonna lie. My father used to train me
outside when it was snowing. Put the boots on, run up and down the road in the snow, bro, and that helped me.
We ran snow. We cleared it off.
Listen, I used to think I used to be so neurotic about it, and every aspect of life was focused around how can I get better for football. It was, hey, if I shovel these steps, it's going to work on my strength because now I got my core, so I'm going to shovel these steps when it snows. You just figured out some other type of way to train or to do to get what you wanted doing the things that you could do. Now, is shoveling snow the same as having a full-blown practice down in February in Texas because I can? Not even close, which is why this is what we're talking about.
You got to get out and run in order like that. Like, I just think I was good, but someone should have broken that record by now. That's all I'm saying. Like, I was very good. It's
right, but records are meant to be broken, right? Like that's kind of just like how it works, especially with the way guys are stronger, bigger, faster, stronger now, more access to just other stuff that they can do, but obviously not so much when it comes to here. So
the last guy who was close, was now Anthony Pomo ran faster than me.
Pomo.
He has a school record. He went 13.9. But in this meet, the last person that was close was Anthony Pomo. He should have broke it. He didn't run well that day. He ran 14.7 or something. But and then right after I graduated, the kid who I beat in that race 2 years later, he would actually run a little bit faster than I did. But in that race, he didn't run.
Right, there's outside liars that go into it. And that
nobody since then has even been close.
Right, which tells you it's tougher. Or is it one of those things now? Look,
tracks are better. Tracks are better.
You have to understand.
They wear spikes. I didn't wear spikes. Listen, Derek.
Technology, dude, has changed.
I ran that in flats.
Yeah. I mean, but look, that's the stuff that, listen, also, here's the other part, right? So you're in one of these states, right? It's not just coaches that understand these are the football states. Coaching. You know what I'm saying? It has nothing to do. You're talking about now every media market is going to be in one of these states when it comes to that type of thing, right? All of, if you're launching some type of football something, I'm going to these 3 states to try it out or test it out, or I want these guys to be involved, right?
Less taxes.
There's no look, LeBron went to Miami for a reason, dude. It wasn't just because D Wade and Bosch were there, right? He also saw hey, I'm leaving Ohio, I can make a little bit of money, right? So yeah, now that stuff's also it's just people want to go to these places.
It is pretty amazing. So I mean, it was a great thing to talk about. Now we just created a migration, I guess. So
listen, there's a reason but listen, and it is, you could say look at those states. All 3 of those, the 3 top ones, California, Texas, Florida, all have multiple Division I programs within their borders. I think that matters. It really does. Whether it's look,
that does matter. You're right.
Yeah. Or do you have Listen,
Utah has multiple ones. Their
do
kids
you
have more
have
opportunities.
San Diego State? Yeah. Do you have Florida International? Yeah. Do you have, I don't know, Baylor, right? Like, but it's still a Division I program, bro. Right? So it's still an opportunity to get that full scholarship at that high level without even having to leave your state border. Now, look, are those states spread out? Yeah. Is Miami different than Florida State? Absolutely. Is there a little bit of a difference? Yeah. But it's better than having Rutgers. Where else? What else do you have? You don't. I mean, shit, some states don't even have a freaking Division I program.
That's true, but if you think about it, though, like New Jersey, which has
Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont. Vermont doesn't have anything.
well, yeah, and those states don't have.
But I'm saying those are like that's not even. So if you're in one of those states, damn right. Now look, okay, play the Division III. Yes, is Division III football in New Jersey pretty damn good because the schools that you have are quality programs? Yeah, but we're not talking scholarship here. We're not talking 5-star. We're not talking big wig stuff. Like Division III football, totally separate entity, totally different podcast, different. Division II, same thing. If you're looking for your blue bloods, California, Texas, Florida, Georgia, top 4. Look, maybe you could sneak in Ohio if you want, a Louisiana. Yeah, okay.
Did Jersey support another Division I team? Meaning, so like, here's what I mean. Like Utah, you literally have Utah State, BYU. That's just Division I. They have 3. The state is nowhere near as big as New Jersey, and doesn't have.
Well, size-wise, yeah. Population,
it has very
hell
few
no.
prospects.
Hell no.
Prospect-wise,
not even close.
They have like 10 to 15 Division I kids a year.
Right. Like, look at Oregon.
So, right. So,
Washington
State. Oregon State, you know.
Washington State, right? Like
Washington has some players.
Yeah, and look, and that when you showed the map, that one red dot was up near there.
Yeah, even though it's a strange state, but it's like
even like Nevada, right? Like Nevada, UNLV,
Nevada,
right? Arizona State, Arizona.
Not to mention all these schools places have FCS schools too. So,
correct.
I think in the short run, if New Jersey had another Division I program, in the short run, it would be a problem. They would probably stink. Okay. In the long run,
benefit.
Wouldn't those two schools start competing with each other for players?
Absolutely. And then you knock each other off.
And you raise the bar. More scholarships available, more players playing your sport.
Dude, I think it would be tremendous. And that's kind of I assume now look, you look at Monmouth.
Look at basketball. We have a ton of Division I programs in New Jersey in basketball.
People don't even know about him.
FDU, St. Peter's, Seton Hall, Rutgers, Monmouth.
Monmouth's Division
I. Rider, 6. I mean, it's 6. So
now I wonder if that now, like, okay, so you're talking top states football, right? I wonder if we did top states basketball. Is New Jersey in that top 5?
My guess at basketball, it goes by population.
And we have the most people.
New York has the most people. New York City basketball is great, always. There's also history. And it's also the cold. Basketball, you go inside. So cold is 0 factor.
Listen, what was the other thing we were talking about, right? Lacrosse. I haven't heard about a lot of lacrosse players coming out of Texas.
No. That's an interesting.
Or Florida.
That's history. That's more history.
Right.
I wonder 100 years from now when we're
if you wanted to be one of those cutting edge dudes, you take lacrosse, bring it down to the athletes in Florida. Now you're good. Here you go. Now it's, oh boy, right? Like now it's
money in it. Right now, there's no money in it, so that's
the problem. And there's no, like I said, there's no there's nothing to get. Like I'm a pro lacrosse player. Okay, is that the same as saying I'm a pro football player?
Basketball and football are good to compare because you have money in this.
Yes, there's money makers, right? They're money makers.
So there's like an incentive plan. Lacrosse,
correct.
If you could be a Division I player, but you're doing it purely to leverage your education,
right? And here's the other thing I think too, like, right, like Florida, right? You're talking about a certain demographic that they've seen people make it and make money, right? Living a life as a professional athlete, right? For the most part, if you're coming from New Jersey, you haven't seen that. You've seen a person go to school maybe on a scholarship to get a degree to now earn and work for that money, right? Like it's hard that you haven't seen that firsthand. So when you don't see something firsthand, are you really going to go after it like the same way as if, hey, the neighbor next door made it to the league and he's making whatever right now? So that's, I think, something else to think about too, right? Like, oh, hey, if I just, if I get a Division I scholarship to this place, that's where I need to be, right? In Jersey, it's, oh, wow, I've never seen that before. Or like, it's hard for them to see it because they haven't seen it. When if you're in Florida, California, Texas, it's like, oh yeah, the guy before me got a full ride to USC, right? The guy before me got a ride to Florida State. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. Not, oh, you're one of, you're an outlier. Like that's the norm. You're creating that where everybody is focused on getting that Division I big time offer. Where in North Jersey or Jersey in general, I don't know if that's the same thing. They all say they want it, but is it there, right? Like, or are they just saying, no, I'm just going to get my, I'll use it to get my education and go, right? Like it's not a means, like the be all end all for some of these guys or most of these guys from these big time states is NFL or bust. Like I need that to get me to where I want to go. Whereas some of these guys in the Northeast, like, yeah, it's great if I get that, but if not, I'll just go do this.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, and that was amazing. I thought that was great. I got a boogie. This was great stuff.
All right, man.
I will talk to you. Well, I talk to you all day. So,
well, I hope I just make sure you're not booking your plane ticket to one of these states.
What do you mean?
Because I don't want you moving to one of these states already. Because I mean, now's the time. Right before Troy hits that, next level stuff. Like, I don't know, buddy.
I can't win that battle.
No. Listen, and that's one I am totally going to say
support.
Let's not try it.
All right, man. I'll talk to you next time.
All right.
All right.